Mao Zedong was a powerful emperor who governed China in the middle of the 20th century, and led China into becoming a communist country. Mao isolated China from most of the world and made the country a more independent nation. Mao was born in Shaoshan province in China on December 26, 1893. Mao was the son of a rice farmer and lucky enough to be one of the few Chinese children that were able to attend school. Mao attended school until his father pulled him out and forced him into an arranged marriage. After Mao's wife died, he saw no point in being a rice farmer and left his hometown to pursue his interests. Mao joined the Chinese Nationalist Army, also called the Kuomintang, and climbed his way through its ranks. Mao began to travel to different cities in China under nationalist occupation. Upon his arrival at many cities, he found armies of peasants ready to rebel against their nationalist landlords. Mao began to encourage them to rebel and fight for their freedom. But the leader of the nationalist army, Sat Yun-sen, did not support the peasants or the idea of their rebellion and forced Mao out of the Kuomintang. Mao later went to Russia to get the Soviets' help in forming China's Communist Party in 1921. Mao began assembling an army in 1926 with Russia's support to take control of China. He began a civil war against the Chinese Nationalist Army in 1927 that lasted until October 1949, when the Communist Party of China defeated the Nationalists and took control. Mao's new communist government was called the People's Republic of China, and they abolished rule by an emperor, known historically as imperialism. They set up a government with a president to replace the emperor. This new system seemed more down-to-earth to the people. Unlike the dynasty, where the only way to become emperor was by overthrowing the old dynasty or being related to the current emperor. Soon after the new government was in power, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, a movement dedicated to helping China industrialize. The movement's goals were to make China a greater industrial power and surpass the industrial output of the UK. Some of this movement's goals were unpopular or unreal. One such example was the Sparrow War, during which the Chinese were instructed to kill sparrows because at the time sparrows were thought to be bad for crops. Sparrows help crops by eating the bugs that live inside crops. By killing them, the Chinese had eliminated large portions of the pest predators, thus causing a larger portions of the crops to be unusable. 4 years later, the Great Leap Forward failed because by focusing only on industrialization, Mao had diverted workers from crop production to steel production, causing large famine. Most people pointed the blame at Mao for starting the movement. In an attempt to calm the people, Mao stepped down. He let his successor, Li Shaqi, take office. After taking office, Liu criticized Mao's policies and even Mao's failures. He went so far as to say that not only had China not leapt forward, but they had also done a great deal of falling backward. Although the Communist Party was still in control of China, they were not popular with the Chinese. The Chinese saw Mao's army as having been responsible for abolishing the Kuomintang. The Communist Party was not viewed with the same notoriety. Mao needed a way to not only gain support for the Communist Party, but also to turn people to his side and away from Liu's. Mao Zedong sought the support of the average Chinese citizens during a campaign known as the Cultural Revolution, which lasted 10 years. The Cultural Revolution was a movement that Mao started to gain support for him and the Communist Party, and take support away from Liu. A movement alone was not enough to gain the amount of support that Mao needed to take back China from Liu's government. Mao needed another way to gain support for the movement. That way was a book titled The Quotations of Chairman Mao Zedong, also known as the Little Red Book. The Little Red Book was officially released in October 1966. The book was filled with quotations and proverbs on how to live your life, written by Mao Zedong. The book was also designed to change the culture of China. At the time of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, China embraced legalism, giving the emperor and the government total control and power. Confucianism, however, had a system in which the emperor would lead by example. Mao included the teachings of Confucius in the Little Red Book in the hope that China's new philosophy would be Confucianism to stand against legalism. The goal was to get the books distributed across China. Mao's Red Books were very successful at expanding the Chinese Communist Party's numbers.
An organization called the Ministry of Culture made it their top priority to publish the quotations of Chairman Mao Zedong as soon as possible. The original publication for the quotations of Chairman Mao Zedong was set for January 1964, however the book was mostly used in 1965. The Chinese army in the rest of China was already eager to read the quotations of Chairman Mao Zedong. The Chinese Red Army was able to receive the book earlier than the rest of the population because Mao Zedong implemented the book as a military need. The Ministry of Culture assured Mao Zedong that over 90% of the population of China would receive and admire the book by 1965. In 1965, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China officially approved the book for publication by the People's Publishing House. The distribution of the quotations of Chairman Mao Zedong within China was by the Xinhua Shuve, or the Xinhua bookstore. It was estimated that every Chinese citizen had a copy of the book. The total amount of books that were distributed is unknown, but the estimated for the copies sold is around 6.5 billion copies till the 1970s. The quotations of Mao Zedong was glorified by the people of China. It was commonly used in propaganda art to have happy people holding the book high and chanting Hao Sui, which in English means long live. The Little Red Book was given sometimes as a gift to people who were newlyweds or at a public fundraiser event. By the time of the 1960s, the quotations of Chairman Mao was the most visible icon of China. Almost every poster and album cover was made by propaganda agents and involved the Little Red Book and somewhere in the image. After the Cultural Revolution, some Chinese adopted the nickname the Cherished Red Book instead of the Western-used nickname called the Little Red Book. However, some people argued the quotations of Chairman Mao was only adopted because it was enforced, but statistics show that most people accepted the book graciously. In modern Chinese society, it is now just a nostalgic piece. Mao made it necessary that all Chinese people memorize the book for certain occasions like meeting entrances. With this newly educated group of Chinese, he had the power to form the people to do what he wanted all along. Mao Zedong lives a legacy that most people could not even have the chance to do. Mao Zedong is still recognized as one of the most popular men to live. Mao Zedong met with President Nixon and he lessened tensions between China and the US. Mao Zedong never gave up the position in the People's Republic of China. In 1976, another Chinese peasant, Deng Xiaoping, took over and the need for the book waned considerably. Mao Zedong died from Parkinson's disease on September 9, 1976, at the age of 82 in Beijing, China. Today, the book is just a remnant of Mao Zedong's popularity and a nostalgic piece of a revolutionary age. Only a few people still have his book to remind him of what he did years ago. However, the quotations of Chairman Mao are still used by people today who still follow his ideals. Some politicians even have the book because of its primary function, which is politics and propaganda. One of the most famous examples of a politician using the book was when Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell used a copy of Mao's Little Red Book at George Osborne's meeting.